recording this meeting, and that it will be available to everybody probably sometime tomorrow afternoon. I'll send the recording to Ryan in our office. He'll get it up on our YouTube page, and I'll send a link out to everybody sometime tomorrow. So just be patient. We'll get that out, but this is recorded. So if you have a coach or an AD or somebody that might want to watch this after the fact, they can do so. So the first thing I want to talk about, and again, we're just talking about girls swimming today. This is just girls swimming, and the new approval of the variances that we got for season B, which includes girls swimming, and the slight changes to the calendar for girls swimming. So we will have another meeting for boys swimming that talks about any new calendar changes that CDPHE might come, or any variance changes that may or may not occur. So I'm just going to mute everybody here really quickly. And so, again, this is just girls swimming. So I want to go over the date changes, because really, again, those are really the only structural changes that we have to swimming is around the calendar. And so the season will run from January 25th until March the 13th. And that's a little bit of a change from what we had put in place in our meeting, I think, that we had with athletic directors and everybody back in early December. Was originally, we had planned on a February 1st start date. I'll just say, I talked about it in the hockey meeting, but essentially the governor kind of came out and sort of, as I like to call it, put his foot in his mouth and said some things around when athletics can resume, and it has to do with schools returning to in-person learning. And some schools said, well, hey, we're already doing in-person learning, or we already have a plan for some kind of a hybrid model. And so why, when you say that that's what we need to resume athletics, why can't we do it? And so we had anticipated sitting down at the table with CDPHE in the middle of January, but after the governor kind of came out and said that, they came to us and basically wanted to look over the variances and ultimately approved them. So we were very pleased with that. It did allow us to begin our season a week earlier. So we will start on January 25th, which gives us the opportunity, a little bit more flexibility with some of the seasons that we've got. So let me just go over that with you guys now. Again, January 25th competition, January 18th. I know some of you guys had some questions on that. The information I sent out, I think it was Sunday or yesterday. I was talking about the competition date of January 25th. Practice, some of you said, oh, I got an email from Rhonda that said January 18th. That's correct for practice. So January 18th is the start of formal practice. January 25th is the start of competition. There's no changes structurally to the number of meets. We're still going to have, we're still going to allow for 7 meets. We're still going to allow for the state meet, obviously, to occur with time finals and 20 athletes there. There's no changes whatsoever to the qualifying process or the way that we're running the state meet. But obviously, we have some changes to the variances that were approved and to our calendar as well. So we'll go over those here. But just giving you a chance to kind of look over the bullet points around the calendar and give you guys just a minute to kind of soak in some of those changes that we have to those dates. And I talked about all of those just now, and again, just a week change there really for as it applies to girls swimming and diving. So coming down to general requirements and considerations, I am very, very pleased to announce that CDPHE, after quite a few conversations and going back and forth and really trying to get some of this done, is we were approved for 50 total participants in the swimming pool for competition. And then when I spoke with everybody in October, I think our number that we were hoping for was 25. And so we did get pretty fortunate there. It'll add some opportunities for girls during the regular season to add some more to your rosters and getting into the competition pool and being able to swim. So originally we had 25. That number is now 50. And then just understand that that 50 number that we had approved from CDPHE only applies currently to competition. Okay, it does not apply to practice. And let me just say that we are still, and this is where I give Rhonda a lot of kudos, as she's going back, and I expressed some concern to her around, hey, we're going to be conducting these virtual meets that will be allowed one team with 50 kids on, let's just say the virtual meets on a Monday. And then on Tuesday, you got to turn around and you would not be allowed to have 50 people in there for a practice, because what CDPHE has said, and you can see it highlighted in yellow at the end of this paragraph, is that teams must follow the indoor-outdoor guidance for the dial level of their county. And so essentially in orange, the way CDPHE looks at us is we would follow the gym guidance, which is 25 people allowed indoors. And so you would be limited to that number for a practice. But I will say, there is some back and forth still happening. Rhonda and I are pushing to get that number at practice for 50 as well. And so just kind of understand that in all the approvals that they gave us, they were very clear that our approvals only applied to competition, that all of our practice would have to still use the current dial level that is in place in your county. And so I think most are in orange, which is 25 per county. Now, understand that these numbers are obviously based on approval from your local county health department. So CDPHE has allowed us to have 50 people indoors. They want the dial currently to be used for practice. We're still working on that. I'll get that information out as soon as we have it from them. But basically, if your individual county won't allow you for 50, then you've got to follow whatever your individual county will or will not allow. CDPHE feels that it is safe to have 50, but some counties are more strict than others. And at the end of the day, whatever that county says is what you guys are going to have to go with. I said it in ice hockey, and I'll say it in this meeting as well. If there's a local health department, a meeting that you're having with the local health department that you want me to be a part of to kind of go over some of these variances and safety modifications that we put in place, I'd be happy to do so. If there's a individual rec center or a pool or a university that you want me to reach out to because you're having some difficulties getting in to those facilities, I would be happy to do so. I had a coach reach out to me yesterday and say that they use Adams State as a facility, and that they're being told that they cannot use that because they're not allowing on-campus groups. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to get in contact with somebody at Adams State to just get a meeting and try to explain to them the modifications and some of the safety guidelines that we've put in place. And hopefully we can get some accommodations there. I don't know if they'll be successful, but again, I'm here to be a resource for you guys, however you need it. And so please feel free. I like to be approachable. Reach out to me with any concerns that you might have, and I'd be happy to help you in any capacity. But just realize we were approved for 50 participants for competition. You're going to follow your dial for practice currently. And if your local county health department has stricter standards or guidelines, you will follow those. So just be aware of that. I think the question was who's responsible for reaching out to their county. I would say most, if you're using an outside facility like a rec center, my guess is they've already done so. But I would say your athletic director, your superintendent would be the one that would be working, and probably district athletic. I know every district athletic director I've spoken to has already been in pretty close contact with their local county health departments. If you're coming from a smaller district, maybe that does not have a district athletic director, I would just recommend that your athletic director make that contact with local health and just make sure that they're aware of this approval and that everything is good to go from their standpoint. And again, if there's any issues, I'd be happy to be any kind of a resource that might be helpful. So a couple of items that CDPHE asked us to include into the document. So if you guys remember in that October meeting, we went through this, what you're about to look at right now, we went through this in detail. I'm not going to do that here. And so just understand, I'm going to cover the additions to the document. And if you have any questions, ask. But again, try to go back to that meeting, as I think it's important for you guys to just see the whole thing. We talked about this at great length. Students, coaches, and volunteers should not go to practice or participate if, and I don't need to read all this, but basically it says if you have COVID, if you've come into contact with somebody that has COVID, if you're experiencing symptoms that may or may not be related to COVID, until you can prove that you have a negative diagnosis of COVID, don't come to practice. It's pretty straightforward. CDPHE asked all of us to add this this wording into our documents, so we've done that here, just saying don't show up if you've got COVID or may have COVID.
Are the 25, 50 women's athletes home?
Yeah, so somebody asked, there's a question that came in, are the 25 and 50, the 25 around the indoors for practice? Unfortunately, that's just a number that you're allowed indoors. And so that would apply to coaches and athletes. It's what he said, and managers too. Don't waste space on managers. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And so as far as competition is concerned, we were approved for 50 participants. So when you're counting that 50, that does not include coaches. It does not include essential personnel. CDPHE approved us for 50 participants. But when we're talking about practice currently, the number that they've told us is around the current dial level. And that dial level of orange says 25 people allowed indoors. So you obviously have to revert back to that. So if you had a coach and 24 kids, that's 25. You have 2 coaches and 23 kids, that's 25. You'd only be allowed 25. Again, we're still working on that. There's some back and forth still happening. And I hope to know more by Thursday, maybe Friday morning on that. But for competition, if you're having a dual meet, 25 on one team, 25 on the other. And again, I don't want to get into this because we had a 4-hour meeting before, but we talked about your holding areas, your gymnasiums, your classrooms, areas in your school where you can maintain social distance so that you've got only 50 in the competition area at a time. You can stagger different, some diving from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., swimming from 10 to 12, whatever it might be. You can get creative. 50 participants in the competition area. If you've got 25 girls socially distanced, wearing a mask in the gymnasium, waiting for their turn, that's okay. We talked about that. So again, I don't want to go into that in great detail because we did it in extreme detail and length in our last meeting. If you have any questions, reach out to me, but it's 50 participants in the competition area for a swim meet. And that's 50 for if you have a virtual meet where just one school's there, you have 50 girls for that meet from one team. If you have a dual, each has 25. If you have a try, do the math. All right, so ventilation was something that they wanted us to add in here as well. And so what they've asked us to put in is that improving ventilation has been shown to reduce spread in indoor environments. Administrative coach practices should be adopted to promote airflow when, sorry, lost my spot there. I was letting a few people into the meeting. Should be adopted to promote airflow, open windows, doors, etc. when available. Ensure proper ventilation, including reduction of capacity limits, will help to reduce the concentration of airborne contaminants, including viruses. So basically, if you've got the ability to open a window, to open a door, to open 2 doors, to get some airflow going, CDPHE recommends that you do that. They found that they quoted some studies. I guess there was like a CrossFit gym in like Virginia or something where somebody was like an epidemiologist and was able to like figure out exactly which windows they could have open so that like nobody would get COVID, even though they had like 40 people in the room and one of them had COVID, nobody else got it because of the airflow in there. So I guess there's some studies out there that say airflow promote or reduce the likelihood of COVID spread. So they've asked us to include in all of our documentation that we would recommend schools and venues open up windows and doors, et cetera, to increase ventilation. So we've added that there. The next piece that was new is around facial coverings, okay? So nothing has changed around facial coverings with swimming. Obviously, if you are a coach, an official, if you are a non-competing athlete, so somebody waiting for your event, you're wearing a mask, just as we spoke about. Obviously, you don't have to wear a mask while swimming. So again, I'm not going to get into detail because there was like 100 questions on this during the last Zoom. But you step up to the starting block, you can remove your mask, you swim, you come out of the pool, and you'll put your mask back on. One piece that CDPHE is requiring us to add into the documentation, you'll see highlighted there in yellow, is that each facility must have a place where athletes can safely store their facial covering while in the water. So a table, some kind of a bin, something similar must be placed at each starting block for athletes to safely place their facial covering while competing. Facial coverings must be put back on by athletes immediately after exiting the pool. So basically what they're saying is that, you know, you've got a girl up there and maybe she just puts her mask down there on, you know, on the bulkhead and somebody kicks it off and it goes in the water. Now she comes out of the pool and she has no ability to put it back on. You just got to make sure that you've created some type of an area by each starting block where the athlete can put their mask so that when they exit the pool, they have the ability to put it right back on. Because I guess their concern just comes around, you know, athletes not being masked indoors. And so, especially with just the close proximity and, you know, just the humidity in the pools. And there's obviously some concern that they had around potential spread. And so just make sure however you guys decide to do it, it's totally up to you. It's up to each venue. There's no set protocol. Just we're asking you to think it through. When the athlete comes out of the water, where's their mask? How are they putting it right back on? So we've added that language here for you guys to figure out. Locker rooms. We talked about this at the last meeting. What we were essentially approved for is that the use of locker rooms should be eliminated whenever possible, only used for restroom use, changing, no more than 5 people at one time, all wearing masks, fewer than 5, if appropriate, social distancing cannot be maintained. So basically, if you've got a huge locker room, 5 girls at a time can go in there if they need to change. Obviously, we recommend that athletes are showing up to the venue ready to compete. So however that might look, and we can eliminate locker rooms, I think CDPHE would prefer that. But obviously, we, you know, in my communication with them, it was basically, you know, you're going to have some girls that potentially could be traveling a long distance, or you know, maybe they need to go back in and change out of their swimsuits so they're not, you know, getting onto a bus or whatever it might be, drenched, whatever it might be. There could be a scenario where they need to use a locker room to change. They've allowed that, but they just want to make sure when it's happening, athletes are masked, no more than 5. If they need to use the restroom, obviously that's fine. Some venues, that's the only available restroom in the pool would be the locker room. So we want to make sure that was available. But if you have a locker room that's very small and you cannot maintain 6 feet of social distance within that locker room, then you could not have 5. So you just need to make sure that you and the administration at your school make the appropriate judgment there and allow 5 if it's appropriate. And if it's not, you allow fewer. The next item that is something that we want to talk about that is a little bit new, and I don't know if this is really new, but I wanted to really just kind of hammer this home, and we kind of talked about it with the question that somebody had around 50. Does that include coaches and you know, managers? So must limit deck personnel, the deck to essential personnel only. These are defined as swimmers, divers, coaches, athletic trainers, lifeguards, if you have them at your facility, and officials, okay? So that's who's on deck. Authorized timers, recorders, runners, computer operators necessary to conduct competition are also essential. So while you have a meet, only essential personnel can be on deck, okay? There's no photographer, videographer, those are not essential. They're not considered essential. and they would not be allowed on deck. Now, obviously, if your facility is in a place where you are allowing spectators, and not all will, but if you're allowing spectators at your venue, I believe in level orange, it would allow for 50 spectators. And so if you do allow spectators at your venue, you can include the photographer, the videographer, or whatever there, but they cannot be on deck, period. And so at a meet, you're able to have all those people, the 50 competitors, your coaches, athletic trainers, lifeguards, obviously officials that would not count towards those 50 competitors, anyone working the computer, someone that you might have maybe posting results, whatever it might be, we could consider them essential. Obviously, try to reduce that number as appropriate. You want as few people there as possible, but they would also be considered essential. Team managers, again, I said videographers, photographers, family members, non-competing students. If you got somebody that's maybe got a sprained, ankle, is not competing, they would not be allowed to be on deck. So again, just as essential personnel would be allowed to be on deck during the meet. So I think we were pretty clear about that and kind of what those numbers look like, who's allowed. We talked about that earlier. I just want to really hammer that home here. And Whitney's looking at me like maybe we have a question.
We were told that someone video to stream could be essential. Is that not true?
Yeah, so they said that would somebody that wanted to, video to stream it be considered essential. So in orange, you're allowed 50 people. I know some facilities might not allow that, but I would say that with being in orange and allowing spectators being allowed that limited number, I would just say if you have somebody that's going to stream the meet virtually for people to watch at home, just put them in the bleachers. Just say that you're going to have one spectator. You're going to use one of the 50 spectators that you'd be allowed. Just put that videographer in the stands and just go about it that way. Don't let them on the deck. Okay, not on the deck, in the stands, masked, distanced would be what makes the most sense.
Can additional athletes during competition above 25 be placed in bleachers and factored into the spectator count instead of placing them in a separate room?
Yeah, so I guess the question was, can you use, if your venue allows for spectators, and this one's getting tricky. I don't think CDPHE was, probably thought about this when they gave us our variances. But the question was, could you essentially use additional athletes and consider them to be spectators? It's a trick that you're getting really tricky there because you can't have more than 50 people on the deck. And so now if you're saying people are in the bleachers, and those bleachers, obviously most venues are pretty much right there, on the deck. Essentially, it's the spacing is non-existent. And so now you're trying to keep track of how many you have in the bleachers, how many you have on the pool deck. That's going to be very difficult for you to keep track of and essentially to prove. If I was the athletic director and I was making that decision, I would say no. I would not put girls in the bleachers and consider them 20 as part of the 25 spectators. I would say that you could probably get away with that, because what's the difference between 25 adults? I'm going to have no adults and I'm going to put 25 spectators in there. So I think you could probably get away with it. My recommendation, though, would be to have a separate area, because it's just going to be so difficult for you as a coach, to figure out, okay, who's coming out of the bleachers, back into the bleachers. Going to be difficult. Some venues, VMAC is an example where you've got a bleacher that's completely separate. Might be a little bit easier there. I don't think there's anything that would not allow us to do that. It's really going to depend on the venue. Again, some venues that might make a little more sense than others, but I would recommend against it. But I think working with your athletic director and the allowance in level orange to have spectators, and your venue allow. Now, if your venue does not allow spectators, then no, then obviously you can't have spectators. They need to be somewhere else. So your district is saying no spectators. But if you're allowing spectators and your individual venue wants to include athletes in there, I think you could get away with it.
Is there officially a limit to essential people?
Is there a limit to essential people? No. There's not, but let's, again, you got to have the integrity to say, you're not going to put the mom that complains the most about trying to get into a venue on your essential, roster, essential personnel roster, just because she stops complaining to you. It should be coaches. It should be people working the table. And if you're not working, actively involved in the running of the meet, then you're not essential. So make sure that anybody that's you consider essential is playing a role in making sure that that meet is taking place. So obviously, an athletic director who is supervising, a trainer who's there to, act in their duties as a trainer, a coach who's acting their duties as a coach, an official, someone, a scorekeeper working the scores table. Those are all active participants in helping the meet move forward. And so they would be essential personnel. And just, again, you got to use judgment, and everyone's got to have some integrity to make sure that they're not just putting, people out there and calling them essential personnel to get around, the no spectators or whatever it might be. So.
And then around this, who's in charge of actually counting and enforcing these ones?
Yeah, so there's going to be, who's in charge. So I think the question was who's in charge of, enforcing these numbers, and that's the game manager, or the meet, whoever the administrator or whoever the school is put in charge of running that venue on that day. Will be responsible for making sure that around COVID, there's going to be, I don't know of one, site, and some sites like in hockey, maybe it's the coach who's the administrator. So whoever's responsible, whoever was delegated by the AD or by the school, the principal, to be in charge of that venue on that day will be responsible for making sure that you've got no more than 50 competitors, that everybody on the deck's essential, that there's no spectators. If no spectators are allowed, there's only 50 spectators. If 50 spectators are allowed, that the spectators are wearing masks. That will be the responsibility of the administrator in charge of supervising that event, or whoever was delegated from the school to do that. So I think those are most of the questions there around some of the stuff that we've covered. Let me kind of just scroll down and see what else we've got highlighted. There's not a whole lot with swimming because, again, most of the things that we covered, that was it. That's really all that we've got around changes that we didn't communicate to everybody back in October. So if you have specific questions, I'll answer those now. And Whitney's shaking her head yes, so it sounds like we do. So I'll answer those questions. But as far as this document is concerned, I will send this document out to everybody along with that link, probably sometime tomorrow, the link to this recording. And I'll send the link out to the previous recording in October. And you guys can look through all this stuff. If you have questions, reach out. But there was not a whole lot of change to what we put out in October. Again, we had a 4-hour Zoom meeting where we covered a lot of stuff. So I don't want to sort of just piggyback on that. We've already covered it. The only major changes were to our official approval of our numbers, which are now 50. We talked about that. Our dates changed a bit. Everything else that we spoke about in October still applies. So I'll go ahead, Whitney, go ahead and ask me the questions, and I will get as many of those answers as I can.
Okay. I'll just ask you a few around numbers again. Is CHSAA going to keep things fair and implement a cap on roster size? Given the difference in county opinions, is it fair to have one county allow 25 per practice versus another one saying 10 or 6?
Yeah, so I think the question was, are we going to cap the number? No. Whatever your county allows. Now, if your county allows 25, you might need to be creative and maybe on Monday, 25 girls, or if you have a coach there, 24 and your coach are in there, and then on Tuesday, 24 different girls. I've spoken with some ADs and some district athletic directors that are just going to say, we're just going to cap our roster at 25 because that's what makes the most sense for our district. And I totally understand that and support the decisions that all of you guys make. You know what's best for your individual schools. But no, we're not going to cap. I'm not going to, just because one county is so much, more, I guess, strict than another county. We're not going to say one county is only allowing 15, so everybody has to follow 15. Whatever your county allows, your county allows. And you guys need to work with, and I said I'd be a resource to help and sit down and do the best I can to maybe communicate some of these safety modifications that we put in place and the reasoning around them and how we feel like they would ensure safety at a meet. But no, there will be no cap from us around roster numbers. Schools can and coaches can make that determination on their own.
I have a few questions asked about the 25. I think at practice, the participants. Does that include coaches? They heard in basketball that they get 3 coaches.
Yeah, so somebody said that they heard basketball, they get 3 coaches. So that's around games. And I didn't limit you guys to number of coaches for swimming. So there's no limit there. But when we're talking about practice, you got to follow the dial level that you're in for your county. And so currently, the majority, I think 33 of our counties are in level orange. Level orange only allows for 25 people. And so one coach and that 24 athletes. There's no sport that's allowed to go above that dial level right now for practice. We're trying to get some special approval with swimming, because my argument was with virtual meets, you've got one school and 50 people essentially in there. Why could we not carry that over for a practice? I don't think Rhonda was too pleased with that request from me, but I think reluctantly she's going to ask about it, and we'll see what comes back. But again, if CDPHE were to allow for that, you would still have to follow. If your county was not okay with that, or was not comfortable with that addition that we would be granted, you'd still be limited to a lesser number. Whatever your county says, then your county, that's the determining factor. What your county health department will allow for you to do.
Okay, so someone asking for practice limits, just to be ultra clear, between CHSAA and the county, we go with the more strict set of regulations.
Yeah, yep. You're going to go with the county on the practice. The county, whatever the county says. So if you live in the one county that's in green or whatever, like the everything's open for a practice, you could have. It's not going to happen, but you could have whatever the maximums allowed for that practice. Right now, our approval for these athletics is 50 for competition. So even if you're in green, unless CDPHE came back and said, "Oh man, COVID miraculously disappeared on Thursday. It's no longer a thing," and so everybody can go back doing what they're doing. 50 is going to be the number for competition until CDPHE tells us differently. Practice, you'll use your county color dial for.
Justin, not to beat a dead horse, but I went back to the PowerPoint yesterday that we got from Bert, and it does say for practice, 25 athletes, 3 coaches, and 1 athletic trainer. So I don't know.
I'll have to talk.
So should I just go with for swim? That's what this is. What do we do?
Yeah, I don't know where Bert's. Yeah, I don't. Yes, 20. It's 25. It's 25.
Okay.
Yeah, unless your county's in a different color. I mean, the orange dial says 25, and that's what they told us that we had to use was the color dial. So I guess if orange for Bert is 28, but it's 25.
Okay. Is there a limit on how many qualify for a league to the state meet, or for a school? Like if a school has a lot of swimmers, they might get 10 of the top 20 times.
Sorry, say it again with me.
Is there a limit on how many kids can qualify from a league or from a school? Like if a school has a lot of
Yeah. So the question was, is there like a league limit to number of qualifiers? No. Is there a limit? I mean, obviously you get 4 entries per event, so you're not going to go. You get all 20 swimmers in the 50 free couldn't be from school A, but we're certainly not going to limit a league. A league from the top 20 are going to get in each classification wherever they're from, with obviously not going over the 4 per school in a single event.
Do the league meets have to mirror the state meet?
Oh, so that's a great question. Do the league meets have to mirror the state meet? No. You guys can do it however you want. I'll just say that in the Zoom meetings and the planning that we've done, the Zoom meetings with other state associations and the planning that we did and that the COVID committee did, and just talking with various people from, not only the state, but around the country, we felt like the state meet was really only possible with the limitations that we had in place to be done one way. I mean, you guys know, you come to a state meet on a normal year, and you've got, between spectators and I mean, but just between people on the deck alone, there's, probably 250 people, and then you've got, maybe another 700 up in the stands, and that's not even close to being realistic. And so we felt like that was the best way to do the state meet. But if you guys want to run your league meet where each school will do a virtual meet at their own pool to get all 50 girls swimming, and you'll merge the results afterwards, go for it. If you want to do it differently, however you guys feel like makes the most sense for your league, totally up to you. We just felt like that was the best and most realistic way with the extreme limitations that we have on indoor capacity to run the state meet. But you guys can run your league meets however you feel is most appropriate.
Will the minimum 3 practices before our first meet be done on January 25th or 18th?
The minimum practice, January 18th is the start of practice. So you can't compete until you have 3 practices. So you can get your 3 practices in whenever. You can get them in on February 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, but you're not competing until you get those 3 practices in. So January 18th is the start of formal practice. CDPH, that's MLK Day. A lot of you won't be practicing that day. CDPHE approved that date, and so that's what they gave us, that we approved. That's what we said for schools that, I don't know who is practicing on MLK Day, but if you are, you'd be able to. But for most of you, 19th, 20, 21, 22, I think then 23 is Saturday. So you'd have those essentially 5 days to get those 3 practices before the start of the formal season. But, if you have a girl who's out with COVID or who, has an injury or whatever it might be, you can get your 3 practices in at any time. You just can't compete in a meet until you get them in.
For a virtual meet, does the 50 include timers and officials?
So for a virtual meet, does the 50 include timers and officials? No. For a meet, virtual, in-person, dual, tri, quadrangular, whatever you're doing, for a meet, you get 50 competitors on the pool deck. 50 competitors. So does not include officials. Does not include the essential meet personnel that we discussed. The 50 includes just the competitors.
And then someone asked about how do we go about scheduling officials for virtual meets?
So how do we schedule officials for virtual meets? Just like you would any other meet. Just send. So again, for a virtual meet, you need to have an opponent. And so we'll put something together, just like we did for soccer. We'll have it done by the end of the week. So if you're looking for a virtual meet, you can go online and search for other schools that also want a virtual meet. So we'll have that up for you by the end of the week. You guys can go search, and you can have a virtual meet against anybody. So if Durango wanted to have a virtual meet against Niwot, more than welcome to do so, because nobody's seeing each other in person. In-person meets can only happen with league opponents. Only way they can happen. Again, the big thing from CDPHE with everything that we put out with all of our sports was they want to limit the number of contacts that schools that you come in contact with. And so we got to limit the number of schools that you will see throughout the year, which is why we limited it to just league opponents. But if you're going to have a virtual meet and you're never going to see each other, you can have a virtual meet against anybody. So you'll need an opponent. It could be 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams, whatever, however many you want. You'll merge the results afterwards. If you have any questions on a virtual meet, call me. I can walk you through it, give you some guidance on it. But as far as an official and assigning the official, no different than you would assign any other meet. Get your schedule. Get those meets scheduled. Get your schedule to your assigner ASAP. I know some of the assigners are on this Zoom right now. Like, get it to me yesterday. But as soon as possible. Obviously, with COVID just getting back into the building, I think we gave you guys till like Friday when we'd like to see you guys get those schedules to your assigner, but get them to them as quickly as possible, and then they'll get you your meets assigned.
Someone said a new PHO went up dating January 4th. Under orange, it says limit is 50 excluding staff. The old PHO said 25 plus staff. Point is the number excludes staff. It's Tom Yorick if he wants to.
Yeah, I think Tom maybe had a question like on Tom, just email me directly. I'm not entirely sure what you're going for, but the guidance that we have from CDPHE on orange for an indoor, like we're under the gym guidance, which is 25 or 25%. And so I can send you that. Just email me directly. I'll send you what we were going off of, and we can discuss any things that might come up with you that you think it might be different.
Okay. Around COVID, do athletes need to have a negative test to return?
That's it. So the question was, do an athlete need to have a negative test to return? Individual school decision on how you're returning your athletes back from COVID. Each individual school and district will have something in place that clarifies exactly when an athlete will come back. I'm sure the districts already have that in place for when they're able to come back into the school or a pod. So you need to work with your athletic director, your principal, superintendent, DAD on how athletes are returning back to your team from a COVID quarantine.
Along with that, if someone tests positive on the team, is their whole group they practice with put under quarantine?
The question was, if somebody on the team comes down with COVID, who has to quarantine again? Individual athletic director, school principal, DAD, superintendents will have something in place, and we'll make the decisions on what close contact there was, who needs to quarantine individually. Each school will make that determination for themselves.
So we no longer need to follow what was originally posted with CHSAA at the beginning of the year. Is that correct?
Give me the specific.
So like at the beginning of the year, it said that there was a mandatory 2 weeks, but if you go to what things have changed to, that's not the same anymore. So do we, no matter what, follow your county?
So, yes, so exactly. And so there's going to be something coming out from us here within the next, I would say, couple of days. That SMAC document that you guys might be familiar with, that talked about, and I might even have a link to it in this. So this, if you guys can see, like this link that I have in this document that you guys probably have seen it, because I've seen this document to you guys 100 times. It takes you to that COVID-19 requirements. It used to say 10 days until further notice. I guess it's still 10 days, but just there will be some with some loosening of the restrictions around COVID and essentially the push where local county health departments are going to have the final say. It looks like, let's say this, until further notice, it's 10 days. Within the next couple of days, I think something's going to come out from us that's going to say local county health departments have the final say. So if you're in Jefferson County and they say 7 days, and Denver County still wants 10, you will go with the local county health department and what your individual school district is recommending. So we're going to leave that up to at the local level. But you are correct, Lindsay, that originally we had some wording out that said 10 days. And I believe that will come out from Jen as the administrator overseeing the SMAC committee here with CHSAA, that number of days will now be on the local county health to determine.
Any issues with a coach diving, coaching more than one team of athletes at practice?
No. So the question was any issues with with multiple teams coming from the same district that are going to be coming together for a practice. As long as they're in the same league or district, there's no issue around a coach coaching multiple teams. They have to be in the same league or the same district if the kids are going to be together. And so yes, if you've got I know that, I'll just give one example. I think it's maybe Kent Denver Colorado Academy, and St. Mary's. Obviously, they're all private schools, are not in the same district, but I believe they have one diving coach, and those athletes will be competing or practicing at the same time, which is approved by me. Some other districts might say, we just can only afford with COVID one diving coach, and they're going to coach all of our divers during the season. Completely okay, but you couldn't get into a situation where you've got a dive coach who, he could coach multiple teams in different districts at different times, but he could not, because again, we have that restriction on only competing against athletes in your own league. He or she could not say, okay, I'm going to have a diver from Jeffco, a diver from Denver, a diver from Cherry Creek, a diver from St. Vrain, and I'm going to bring them all together and we're going to practice together. That would not be okay. But as long as they're in the same league or in the same district, it's acceptable to have a coach, as an example, a dive coach, coach multiple schools at the same time if they get written approval from me. You just have to send an email to me, just like you would if you have a pool. Let's just say you have a pool, because obviously it's going to be difficult to get time. So you have school A and school B, and you want to practice together. As long as you don't go over that 25 max and you're in the same league, that's okay, or the same district. That's fine to do.
Will there be any exceptions to the minimum meet requirement in order to qualify for state for athletes who have been quarantined for COVID?
There is. I think the question was: will there be a change to the minimum meet? There is no minimum meet requirement this year. You could swim in one meet, achieve a qualifying time. Again, we talked about this at length in October, so I don't want to go into too much detail here. But we're not going to get into a situation where we put in a minimum meet number. Let's just say it's 3 or 2 or whatever it might be, and you've got a situation where a girl, let's say the meet minimum is 3, and a girl has 2 meets, and her 3rd meet is the last meet of the season, and the night before the meet, she starts running a fever, or maybe she has symptoms, or she's just not feeling well, or she came in direct contact with her brother who has COVID, and she goes, you know what, if I don't swim tomorrow, I don't get the chance to qualify. And so she shows up and potentially puts other athletes' health at risk. Not going to happen. So there's no meet minimum this year. And so there's, if you're in quarantine and you only get 1 meet and you're in the top 20, you will be going to the state meet, regardless of the number of meets that you've competed in. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail because we talked about it at length in October, but there is no meet minimum with COVID.
If a school decides to not offer the program, are student athletes immediately eligible for another school?
Yeah, so somebody asked, it's no different if a team, because of COVID, doesn't have a program, that student is now considered a student without a program, and they would be able to compete following the state statutes. So
can we have the kids use labeled Ziploc bags to put masks in next to the pool?
Yeah, that's a really great idea. They said, could we have like labeled Ziploc bags where they would put their mask in while they're swimming? That's a great idea. Yes.
If a pool has 2 bodies of water, we cannot have 24 swimmers in the main pool and 6 divers in the well. Is this correct?
Sorry, say that again, Whitney.
If a pool has 2 bodies of water, we cannot have 24 swimmers in the
Yeah, I guess they're saying, like, if you've got, I'll just interpret this question as, we have a dive well and in the swimming competition pool. No, 25 on the deck. So you couldn't say, okay, we're going to put 25 in the dive well and 25 in. Once you're in that one room, the swimming deck area, 25 indoors, unless your county allows for more. I would just avoid trying to find creative ways to get around that.
I think that's most of the questions. If you want to reiterate what the limit is on like individual entries and like for teams at state, because someone was asking about that, the top 20 again. Yeah,
that's same. That'll all be in the bulletin, but again, just for no limit. If one team's got 8 girls and another has 28 girls, again, the limit is on the number of entries per event per school. So, and we'll have I just had the hockey Zoom, so I don't remember if I said this in the hockey Zoom or this one, but the bulletin will be posted. I would say probably on Thursday. So just so you guys know, we'll have the bulletin out there on Thursday. You're going to start seeing a lot of information from Whitney and I over the next few weeks. Again, we're going to put together, we talked about it in ice hockey, we're going to put together a document that talks about, that each school will fill out, that talks about what are the restrictions at their individual pool, kind of a Google Doc that you can change in real time to make that information available to coaches. So school A is going to school B, and they can look online and say, hey, school B is not allowing for spectators, or they have a limit to this number, or there's going to be the entrance is going to be here, the exit's going to be here, whatever it might be. We're just going to try to get all those covered. Now, that's not going to supersede the fact that we still want you reaching out. There still needs to be that communication piece with coaches and officials, whether it's via phone call or email, to say, okay, I'm the host school. I'm going to email my opponent, the coach. I'm going to email all the officials that are coming. I'm going to tell them exactly what we have in place around entry, exit, spectators, all that, so nobody's walking into a situation where they weren't aware. But we're just trying to add an additional information piece where you're going to have that document available to you so you can search. Just overkill, so there's no lessen the likelihood of a missed opportunity, or for some reason somebody doesn't get the information. We just wanted to kind of just really hammer it home with you guys. So we'll have that document available to you. You're going to get some walkthroughs on merging results for virtual meets. You'll see a lot of stuff coming out from me. Bulletin will be posted with a lot of information on Thursday. And again, I can't reiterate enough. If you have a question individually, email me your cell phone number, call me, email me. I am more than happy to speak with anyone individually. If they have a question, or maybe you're a new coach and you're jumping right into COVID and you got a lot of questions, I'd be happy to sit down with you for however amount of time you need to go over some things. If you're just not comfortable with some of these regulations that we put in place, if you have some questions on, kind of what we're doing. And I said it in the ice hockey meeting. Listen, sitting down with CDPHE, obviously they had a lot of concerns about indoor sports and some of these variances and improving them, and it was a long process. And so I know obviously that this is not going to look like a normal season. It's not ideal in a normal year. Trust me, I don't want to limit a state meet to 20 girls. It just kills me. I want the pool deck flush with kids where we're all getting angry because there's so many people on deck that there's no room and we're having to kick parents out. I love that stuff. I want as many people as possible at these meets. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's just not realistic right now. And so we'll get through this year. It's not great. Obviously, we had to put a plan in place that CDPHE would be comfortable with, allowing us to have athletes indoors competing, coming from all over the state. We had a lot of concerns, but we ultimately settled on a place where we were able to ease some of those concerns and get this variance approved. And I'm just really, really appreciative of all of your understanding as coaches and administrators. Without you guys, we couldn't do this. And I'm just so thankful that you guys are just really understanding and know that we're just going to get through this year, and it'll get a lot better on the other side. So thank you there. But that's really all. Whitney, is that all the questions really that for the most part that we had?
Sorry, someone had just asked if the lifeguards were
Yeah, lifeguards are essential. Yeah, lifeguards were on the essential list. Yep. So so if you have a lifeguard at practice, then yes, it would be part of the, again, because when you're talking about practice, you get 25 people. Unless we can get that number increased and your local county health department is okay with it. But really, 25 for practice, 25 people. So that would be the number. I'm really pushing hard to get that number increased. We'll see what happens. But for a competition, for a meet, lifeguards are considered essential personnel for a meet.
And then Bill just asked you when it comes to the DD requirement.
Yeah, so we'll get that. We'll put that out, Bill. I think let's get that. I think it's better in the bulletin and in an email to everybody. I think and then if they have questions, they can. Just because honestly, Bill, just I don't have the information in front of me right now. So it's in the bulletin. I don't have the bulletin up. We'll get that out. It'll be out on Thursday. And then if anybody has any questions, never hesitate to reach out to me on that. But the question was just around the DD with diving. We'll get that information out to you guys.
And someone just wanted you to emphasize the working with our local health department for regulations.
Yep. All right, so that's all I've got for you. We're a little over 45 minutes. We're under an hour, so I did okay. Again, reach out to me with any questions that you have. Really appreciative of everything that you guys do. Look forward to a great season, getting these girls back out with their teammates and their friends and their peer group, and being able to compete this season. I think it's a big win for us in Colorado to be able to allow for that, and we're very appreciative of all the work that you guys put in to make it happen. So thank you. And again, if you have any questions, give me a call or an email. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Justin.
Yep, thank you.